Hey guys, how are you today? I have missed you. I am here. I've got the Nutshell Library. I've got the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I've got my presidents, and I also have my states. So last time we talked about Honolulu, and we said that Honolulu was the capital of Hawaii. Hawaii was our 49th state to be part of the United States, but it's not connected to the United States. An island state. This time we're going to talk about Idaho and what is the capital of Idaho. We have gone through the first 12 presidents of the United States: George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison. Sorry, I'm kind of sitting low because I was trying in my bedroom trying to be by myself because my family's up and about doing things. James Monroe was the 5th president. The 6th president, John Quincy Adams, the son of John Adams. Andrew Jackson was the 7th president. The 8th president was James K. Polk, James Knox Polk. And the 12th president was Zachary Taylor. So who was the 13th president of the United States? Think about that, and at the end I'll quiz you. And what was the capital, or what is the capital of Idaho? I'm going to read the last of the Nutshell Library today, and it is called Pierre, a cautionary tale, a 5-chapter and a prologue by Maurice Sendak. And it was written in, the others were written in 62. Let's see if it's in 1962. Here are Pierre and his parents. And I still have that pain on my hand. It will not go away. So you'll have to excuse that. All right. And this is set to music in the video. Here's the prologue. There once was a boy named Pierre who only would say, "I don't care." Read his story, my friends, and you'll find the end that a suitable moral lies there. What other kind of stories have a moral to them? Aesop fables, that's exactly right. Fables usually have a moral, and some people say Aesop and some people say Aesop. But I heard from a scholar that it should be Aesop instead of Aesop. So Aesop fables also have morals. So we're going to find out the moral of the story. Here's chapter 1. One day his mother said when Pierre climbed out of bed, "Good morning, darling boy. You are my only joy." Pierre said, "I don't care." Oh my. What would you like to eat? I don't care. Some lovely cream of wheat? I don't care. Don't sit backwards on your chair. I don't care. Or pour syrup on your hair. I don't care. Oh my, what would you do? What would your mother do if you did those things and said those things? You're acting like a clown. I don't care, and we have to go to town. I don't care. Don't you want to come, my dear? I don't care. Would you rather stay right here? I don't care. So his mother left him there. Chapter 2. His father said, "Get off your head, or I will march you up to bed." Pierre said, "I don't care. I would think that you could see. I don't care. Your head is where your feet should be. I don't care." Pierre is very naughty. If you keep standing upside down, I don't care. We'll never ever get to town. I don't care. If only you would say, I care. I don't care. I'd let you fold the folding chair. I don't care. So his parents left him there. They didn't take him anywhere. Chapter 3. Now, as the night began to fall, a hungry lion paid a call. He looked Pierre right in the eye and asked him if he'd like to die. Pierre said, I don't care. Ooh. I can eat you, don't you see? I don't care. And you will be inside of me. I don't care. Then you'll never have to bother. I don't care. With a mother and a father. I don't care. How would you feel if you didn't have a mother and a father? So the lion ate Pierre. Oh my. Chapter 4. Arriving home at 6 o'clock, his parents had a dreadful shock. They found the lion sick in bed and cried, Ah, Pierre is surely dead. Hey, cat, how are you? He likes to read upside down still. I've been trying to teach him to sit upright. They pulled the lion by the hair. They hit him with the folding chair. His mother asked, Where is Pierre? The lion answered, I don't care. His father said, Pierre's in there? Chapter 5. They rushed the lion into town. The doctor shook him up and down. And when the lion gave a roar, Pierre fell out upon the floor. He rubbed his eyes and scratched his head and laughed because he wasn't dead. His mother cried and held him tight. His father asked, Are you all right? Pierre said, I am feeling fine. Please take me home. It's 9:30. The lion said, If you would care to climb on me, I'll take you there. Then everyone looked at Pierre, who shouted, Yes, indeed, I care. The lion took them home to rest and stayed on as a weekend guest. The moral of Pierre is care. All right, that is the last one of the Nutshell Library that I'm going to read to you because that is the last one of the 4. And now I will read Chapter 15 from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Deeper Magic from Before the Dawn of Time. Remember the White Witch had slain Aslan in the last chapter. While the 2 girls still crouched in the bushes with their hands over their faces, they heard the voice of the witch calling out, Now follow me all, and we will set about with what remains of this war. It will not take us long to crush the human vermin and the traitors now that the great fool, the great cat, lies dead. At this moment the children were, for a few seconds, in very great danger. For with wild cries and the noise of skirling pipes and shrill horns blowing, the whole of the vile rabble came sweeping off the hilltop and down the slope right past their hiding place. They felt the specters go by them like a cold wind, and they felt the great ground shape beneath them under the galloping feet of the Minotaurs, and overhead there went a flurry of foul wings and a blackness of vultures and great bats. At any other time they would have trembled with fear, but now the sadness and shame and horror of Aslan's death so filled their minds that they hardly thought of it. As soon as the wood was silent again, Susan and Lucy crept out onto the open hilltop. The moon was getting low, and thin clouds were passing across, but still they could see the shape of the lion lying dead in his bounds, and down they both knelt in the wet grass and kissed his cold face and stroked his beautiful fur, what was left of it, and cried till they could cry no more. And then they looked at each other and held each other's hands for mere loneliness and cried again, and then again were silent. And last, Lucy said, "I can't bear to look at that horrible muzzle. I wonder, could we take it off?" Here's the rabble as they came by. So they tried, and after a lot of working at it, for their fingers were cold and it was now the darkest part of the night, they succeeded. And when they saw his face without it, they burst out crying again and kissed it and fondled it and wiped away the blood and the foam for which, well, as they could. And it was all more lonely and hopeless and horrid than I know how to describe. "I wonder, could we untie him as well?" said Susan presently. But the enemies, out of their pure spitefulness, had drawn the cord so tight that the girls could make nothing out of the knots. I hope no one who reads this book has been quite so miserable as Susan and Lucy were that night. But if you've been up all night and cried till you have no more tears left in you, you will know that there comes in the end a sort of quietness. You feel as if nothing was ever going to happen again. At any rate, that was how it felt to those two. Hours and hours seemed to go by in this dead calm, and they hardly noticed that they were getting colder and colder. But at last Lucy noticed two other things. One was that the sky on the east side of the hill was a little less dark than it had been hours ago. The other was some tiny movement going on in the grass at her feet. At first she took no interest in this. What did it matter? Nothing mattered now. But at last she saw that whatever it was had begun moving up and down the upright stones of the stone table, and now whatever they were moving about on Aslan's body. She peered closer. They were little gray things. "Ugh!" said Susan from the other side of the table. "How beastly! There are horrible little mice crawling over him. Go away, you little beasts!" And she raised her hand to frighten them away. "Wait," said Lucy, who had been looking at them more closely. "Can you see what they're doing?" Both girls bent down and stared. "I do believe," said Susan. "But how strange! They're nibbling away the cords." "That's what I thought," said Lucy. "I think they're friendly mice. Poor little things. They don't realize he's dead. They think it'll do some good untying him." It was quite definitely lighter by now. Each of the girls noticed for the first time the white face of the other. They could see the mice nibbling away, dozens and dozens, even hundreds of little field mice, and at last, one by one, the ropes were all gnawed through. The sky in the east was whitish by now, and the stars were getting fainter, all except one very big one low down on the eastern horizon. They felt colder than they had been all night. The mice crept away again. The girls cleared away the remains of the gnawed ropes. Aslan looked more like himself without them. Every moment his dead face looked nobler. As the light grew, and they could see it even better. In the wood behind them, a bird gave a chuckling sound. It had been so still for hours and hours that it startled them. Then another bird answered. Soon there were birds singing all over the place. It was quite definitely early morning now, not late night. "I'm so cold," said Lucy. "So am I," said Susan. "Let's walk a bit." They walked to the eastern edge of the hill and looked down. The one big star had almost disappeared. The country all looked dark gray, but beyond, at the very end of the world, the sea showed pale. The sky began to turn red. They walked to and fro more times than they could count between the dead Aslan and the eastern ridge, trying to keep warm, and oh, how tired their legs felt. Then at last, as they stood for a moment looking out toward the sea and Cairpervell, which they could now just make out, the red turned to gold along the line where the sea and the sky met, and very slowly came to the edge of the sun. At that moment they heard from behind them a loud noise, a great cracking, deafening noise, as if a giant had broken a great plate. "What's that?" said Lucy, clutching Susan's arm. I feel afraid to turn around," said Susan. "Something awful is happening." "They're doing something worse to him," said Lucy. "Come on," and she turned, pulling Susan round with her. The rising of the sun had made everything look so different. All colors and shadows were changed. For a moment they didn't see the important thing. Then they did. The stone table was broken into two pieces by a great crack that ran down it from end to end. And there was no Aslan. "Oh, oh," cried the two girls, rushing back to the table. "Oh, it's too bad," sobbed Lucy. "They might have left the body alone." "Who's done it?" cried Susan. "What does it mean? Is it more magic?" "Yes," said a great voice behind their voices. "It's more magic." They looked round. There, shining in the sunrise, larger than they had seen him before, shaking his mane, for it had apparently grown again, stood Aslan himself. "Oh, Aslan!" cried both the children, staring up at him, almost as much frightened as they were to be glad. "Aren't you dead, dear Aslan?" said Lucy. "Not now," said Aslan. You're not, asked Susan in a shaky voice. She couldn't bring herself to say the word ghost. Aslan stooped his golden head and licked her forehead. The warmth of his breath and the rich sort of smell that seemed to hang about his hair came all over her. "Do I look it?" he said. "Oh, you're real, you're real. Oh, Aslan," said Lucy, and both girls flung themselves upon him and covered him with kisses. And here's the stone table broken. "But what does it all mean?" asked Susan, when they were somewhat calmer. "It means," said Aslan, "that though the witch knew the deep magic, there is a deeper magic, a magic still deeper, which she did not know. Her knowledge goes back only to the dawn of time, but it is if she could have looked a little further back into the stillness and the darkness before time dawned, she would have read there a different incantation. She would have known that when a willing victim who had committed no treachery was killed in a traitor's stead, the table would crack, and death itself would start working backward. And now, oh, yes, and now, said Lucy, jumping up and clapping her hands. Oh, children, he said, I feel my strength coming back to me. Oh, children, catch me if you can. He stood for a second, his eyes very bright, his limbs quivering, lashing himself with his tail. Then he made a leap high over their heads and landed on the other side of the table, laughing. Though she didn't know why, Lucy scrambled over to reach him. Aslan leaped again. A mad chase began. Round and round the hilltop he led them, now hopelessly out of their reach, now letting them almost catch his tail, now diving between them, now tossing them in the air with his huge and beautifully velveted paws and catching them again, and now stopping unexpectedly, so that all three of them rolled over together in a happy, laughing heap of fur and arms and legs. It was such a romp as no one has ever had except in Narnia, and whether it was more like playing with a thunderstorm or playing with a kitten, Lucy could never make up her mind. And the funny thing was that when all three finally lay together, panting in the sun, the girls no longer felt in the least bit tired or hungry or thirsty. And now, said Aslan presently, to business. I feel I am going to roar. You had better put your fingers in your ears. And they did. And Aslan stood, and when he opened his mouth to roar, his face became so terrible that they did not dare look at it. And they saw all the trees in front of him bend before the blast of his roar, as grass bends in a meadow before the wind. Then he said, We have a long journey to go. You must ride on me. And he crouched down, and the girls climbed onto his warm golden back, and Susan sat in first, holding on tightly to his mane, and Lucy sat behind, holding on tightly to Susan. And with a great heave he rose underneath them, and they then shot off faster than any horse could go, downhill and into the thick of the forest. The ride was perhaps the most beautiful, wonderful thing that had happened to them in Narnia. Have you ever had a gallop on a horse? Think of that. And then take away the heavy noise of the hoofs and the jingle of the bits, and imagine instead almost noiseless patting of great paws. Then imagine instead of black or gray or chestnut back of the horse, the soft roughness of golden fur and the mane flying back in the wind. And then imagine you're going to about twice as fast as the fastest racehorse. But this is a mount that doesn't need to be guided and never grows tired. He rushes on, never missing his footing, never hesitating, threading his way with perfect skill between tree trunks, jumping over bush and briar and the smaller streams, and wading the larger ones, swimming the largest of all. And you are riding not on a road, nor in a park, nor even on the downs, but right across Narnia in spring, down solemn avenues of beech trees, and across sunny glades of oak, through wild orchards of snow-white cherry trees, past roaring waterfalls and mossy rock and echoing caverns, up windy slopes alight with gorse bushes, and across the shoulders of heathery mountains, and along giddy ridges, and down, down, down again into wild valleys, and out into the acres of blue flowers. It was nearly midday when they found themselves looking down a steep hillside at a castle. A little toy castle it looked from where they stood, which seemed to be all pointed towers, but the lion was rushing down at such a speed that it grew larger every moment, and before they had time even to ask themselves what it was, they were already on a level with it. And now it no longer looked like a toy castle, but rose frowning in front of them. No face looked over the battlements, and the gates were fast shut. And Aslan, not at all slacking in pace, rushed straight as a bullet toward it. "The witch is home," he cried. "Now, children, hold tight." Next moment, the whole world seemed to turn upside down. The children felt as if they had left their insides behind them, for the lion had gathered himself together for a greater leap than any had yet made and jumped. Or you may call it flying rather than jumping, right over the castle wall. The two girls, breathless but unhurt, found themselves tumbling off his back into the middle of the wide stone courtyard full of statues. And that is the end of chapter 15 of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Millard Fillmore was the 13th President of the United States. He was the Vice President of Zachary Taylor, who spent less than 1 year in office. So Millard Fillmore automatically became the President, and he was only in office for less than a full term, and he also died in office. So Millard Fillmore was our 13th President. All right, I'll see you next time. And Boise is the capital of Idaho. Until next time.